We're back and we're going to talk about the stigma of having a day job, right? A side hustle.
Yeah, going a little deeper into that with the psychology of it and how it affects you as a musician, or how it affected me, I suppose,
Same.
and also the necessity of it.
Yep.
So I think they're two separate topics, but I think we can manage to merge the two. My subtitle for this little discussion is I Can't Afford My Career. That thought came into my head long into my freelancing and auditioning years. And had I been able to go back and, shake my younger self into some sense, I think I wouldn't be where I am right now financially.
Try to remember right after my master's degree, I was living in Texas and I did the typical Texas thing where you go into the schools. This is for wind and brass instruments anyway. I don't know about strings, but since they have such massive band programs,
Hmm.
you go into the schools and you can teach as many students as you can handle. So I did that. That's what everybody did for a job. I got little gigs or whatever, but nothing to have any kind of measurable income. So I had something stupid like 60 plus students and
Wow.
making like $4 a half an hour or however they did it. And then you have to chase after that money constantly. And that was a nightmare and I do not recommend. But I did that for a couple of years. What I wish I would have done then is just get a job like at Target or I don't know, Subway
Mhm.
or whatever, like some actual real job, not teaching lessons for $4 a half an hour where you have to go chase your money down and
Right.
you're just spending all day in the schools.
Mhm.
So I regret that. And then
Mhm.
I lived on my credit card a lot. I remember that.
Yep.
That was a huge mistake. And I kept doing
Mhm.
that when I eventually moved to Chicago so that I could freelance more and teach lessons less. That was my mind anyway. So I moved to Chicago, I was living in this little studio, like sleeping with a mattress on the floor. I had no money. And I was just sort of waiting for students to happen. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I reached
Mhm.
out to some band directors. I don't know. But anyway, I did have a regional job, Elgin Symphony, but that's not like you're not making a living from that. It's just one gig. Anyway, I spent, I don't know, about 10 months, a long time, almost a whole year, just sort of getting by again, probably on credit card and
Mhm.
a few students and just my Elgin Symphony. And I felt like I had to walk to the local Starbucks with my tail between my legs with shame
Mm.
and just be like,
Mhm.
I have to apply for a regular
Right.
job. Um,
Right.
or a regular job, meaning a job where it's flexible because of our freelancing
Yeah.
requirements of being available all the time. So I did that and it was totally fine. And I did this Starbucks job. I got myself established there and became, I forget what they call it, supervisor, I imagine.
Uh-huh.
And I was at this one Starbucks that was run, I swear it was run like a front shop for Italian mafia. No joke.
I believe that.
So yeah, it was totally, oh my God, the scene. So us employees, we just sort of ran the joint and I could basically be gone whenever I needed. I just had to get it. I
Mhm.
organized it myself. There was no manager. Well, the manager was the mafia guy. So I did eventually, while working at Starbucks and being able to be flexible with my schedule, I was able to take gigs whenever I needed to a degree within reason. And I could do something like I went to Hawaii for a year or 6 months or something to work with the symphony, and I was able to
Mhm.
get out of my Starbucks job and ensure that I got it when I came back. Kind of
Wow.
situation. I don't know. It was just always like
Right.
go
Right.
away and then come back.
Yep.
But reflecting back, I don't know why I didn't get a job like that at the get-go, at the beginning, as soon as I graduated, just
Mhm.
get a damn
Mhm.
job and start making some kind of income.
Like a
Yeah,
steady paycheck.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. Steady paycheck and then insurance. Oh my God. So yeah, I had
Yeah.
insurance because I had to work full time for that, which was 30 hours. So it was a lot. It was difficult. I had to work a lot, but I remember starting off like, I'm just gonna wait for the gigs to roll in, of course, which
Yeah.
they will eventually, but my God, I mean, I worked that Starbucks job off and on for I would say almost 10 years
Wow.
until
Good for
finally
you.
I had enough gigs and teaching at community college, other things came up where I
Yeah.
could not have to do that. But I
Important.
finally was able to get rid of all my debt And now I'm
Yay!
terrified. I
Congratulations.
know, right? And now I'm terrified. Like I'm scared of credit cards. So I think that's a
Me too.
healthy
I don't.
fear. Yeah, I don't want anything to do with it because I depended on it and
Right.
waited for gigs and waited for, I don't know. I was just stupid. And
Yeah, I was going to win that job so I could take care of all of it.
right.
I know, right? If you scratch beneath the surface of some of the musicians around us, they do have some financial backing.
Yep.
And that's something that, I mean, my parents slid me some bucks here and there, but they weren't supporting my career. So I'm going to start from an article I read with Marta Egerich. Egerich.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know. I never know how to pronounce his name. Cut
I don't
that.
know
But anyway,
either. That sounded good to me.
she's the famous, brilliant pianist. And I was just reading about how she was being interviewed, and one point she made that really stuck out to me, and it was like a slap in my pride's face. It was just very basic. We need to be funded. We need to have money coming in to be musicians. And I'm not quoting her directly, but that was what, and I was like, oh my God, if even she's saying this, what was I doing all these years? And there was definitely an old guard that promoted the starving artist mentality of that's all you're going to do. And the tenacity of musicians, they're like bulldogs. I mean, for me, the stubbornness too was I am not going to take away my practice time for auditions by getting some job. And I was so concerned because, like string players for auditions are practicing literally all day or taking lessons or blah, blah, blah. So I was teaching, and again, you're chasing down the money. Sometimes it shows up, sometimes it didn't. I never had a steady paycheck. I had to fly with a cello to my auditions, which was all charged on credit cards. And then, after many years, like I think I held on to playing auditions much longer than most of the people who fell away because I was that tenacious and stubborn. But by and by, I had a child, I got married, I got a divorce. All of a sudden, I'm looking at my finances like, what a mess have I made with this pride and this stubbornness and this tenacity. There's something to be said about the tenacity piece. You have to have that, but you just have to afford your career. You have to afford being a string players. I know winds, of course, are very expensive, but string players' expenses are ridiculous. The instrument alone, of course. And I'm just going to jump ahead to a colleague that reached out to me. I mentioned this to you recently. He said that he felt less than as a musician because he had a full-time job.
Mhm.
And I'm going to take that apart for a minute because that's the psychology behind going against what your teachers wanted for you or your parents but like that encouragement is so dangerous to be only a pure musician and, just follow your dreams. And even like if you get a bite, if you get a good sub position, that could go at any second. And half the time when you do get a nice substitute position or, because we really are focusing this on freelancers, the folks who
Right.
did not get New York Phil. This is very specific work, a very specific line of work. Those of us who, you had Elgin, I had Wisconsin Chamber Orchestra, we had bones thrown to us, but none of that. What did I get with Wisconsin? 10 to 12,000 a year,
Yeah, I just want to make a side note when you said follow your dreams. We're always told that. And as a freelancer, that's so dangerous, or dangerous is a little dramatic, but I hear that a lot from full people that eventually that audition like a full-time job for like 10 years. No joke, well, the scene. Like how they
right.
have to have financial backing, their parents or they followed their dreams and they eventually got a full-time job, but that is not a real story. That is you're so lucky, you have money. I mean, sometimes it's not always, but often that I believe is the backstory. And so when you're just your average schmuck freelancer out of whatever school,
Yeah.
you have got to get a job. You cannot just follow your dreams. That
Mhm.
is completely unrealistic.
Oh, completely. I couldn't agree more. And then let's say you do get the job. How many orchestras are folding? How many contracts are being slashed? So you really have to have some financial safety net somewhere.
Right.
So I'm going to, oh, and so I had a conversation with this person who reached out to me, and I said, you should feel less proud or more losery if you weren't working. If you're sitting on your ass, not earning money and taking care of your kids and taking care of your own expenses.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that to me is so the reversal of that thought process came to me as well. And I didn't know that jobs can be flexible. Day jobs can be flexible. We were
They
talking about
can be.
Starbucks.
Hmm.
They can be. And that was my biggest fear is like, well, how am I going to practice? And how am I going to do this? And how am I going to take a gig at the last minute? I thought about it and thought about it. I knew I had to bring in income from somewhere else because I was teaching and doing the region. I am teaching and doing the regional circuit still
Yeah.
like crazy. But you have to pay for gas before you get your paycheck. And then the bills start overlapping and it gets to be chaos. So I decided I thought to myself, well, bartending sounds kind of fun. And so I was like, huh. It was the first time I allowed myself a job to do on the side that like a side hustle that wasn't that didn't make me feel less than.
Yeah. And how
None of
old
them
were you?
should, but what's
How
that?
old were you approximately when you got that job?
It
Just
wasn't
for
that long ago. This was like 8 years ago.
right. So, yeah.
So I had accrued so much financial, what a mess
Yep.
that I had to clean up. I call
Yes.
it paying for the sins of my career. I have to, I have to clean up my mess, which I am successfully, and I'm very happy. Now, I want to tell you one little fun thing about it. It's a hobby now, and it pays me. And I met some amazing people on my job. One time, Chatham Baroque people poured in after a concert, and I made some amazing connections. One time, some of my colleagues came in because they were playing the gig that I was bartending, and I nearly died. I'll tell you what, I wanted to hide under the bar, and I'm like almost in tears now, but check this out. They came, I got them drinks, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys, blah, blah, blah. I'm so embarrassed. They're like, what the heck? I Uber. I have a day job. They all had day jobs. And they're massive players. They're so great.
Yeah.
Like one plays as a sub in Pittsburgh Symphony, blah, 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 blah. They all have like real, but they know better.
Yeah.
They know they have to make the bacon come in.
Hmm.
So I've been feeling much more at peace about it since, I'm listing all, but it took such a long time to get there. But the connections you can make on a job, the best way to promote yourself as a freelancer is to non-musicians. So now I'm in Nashville bartending, and I always bring it up because you just never know who's coming to the bar.
Yeah, you'll get
Swap
wedding gigs
information
and
and meet some really fun people. I get gigs from being not in my own little shell, and
mhm.
also I'm finally paying down my debt.
Yeah. Plus, you really get a sense of when I worked around regular people, non-musicians, you really get
Yeah.
a sense of what regular people think about music or like classical music or orchestras. Like for one, they have zero idea what you do. And I think
Mhm.
a lot of musicians that are maybe in full-time orchestras or that are just doing gigs and refusing to get regular jobs, they have got no idea how much the general public has no idea what they do. It's just sort of
Right.
helpful to go into a gig when you're trying to relate to an audience. But I find that a lot of musicians that don't ever have real jobs at any point in their lives have no idea. There's a
Yeah.
complete disconnect.
A colleague, one of my coworkers at my bar job, had no idea what a cello was.
Right,
Zero
right.
idea. No idea, which shouldn't, I guess it shouldn't surprise me, but it surprised me.
Yeah, it's shocking how much people don't know.
Oh, well,
Shocking.
check this one out. Here's another one. Orchestra that shall be unnamed invited board members on stage during the rehearsal. They were sitting on stage while we rehearsed. And at the after party after the concert, I was chatting with some of the board members. And one woman said to me, I didn't know you guys practiced.
I know.
I didn't know you rehearsed. I didn't know that bridging the gap between musician and audience member, being out in the world, having a job, it is, there's so many good things that could come of it. I think the shame and the pride and the stigma are all internalized from, maybe our parents, maybe our teachers, maybe our colleagues, but it's smoke. It's not real.
I think we learn it indirectly from college.
Yeah.
No one ever told me, now you're going to have to get a real job and then manage a few students and then organize your schedule so that
Right.
you can insert a job for at least the first 5 years. Like no one said that to me. The
Right.
college professors are all like they're so academic, like they went
Oh, and they're
their
so
doctorate.
removed.
Exactly, they're entirely removed. So they
Yeah.
don't have any kind of clue like about freelancing, you know.
Right.
Like they did some gigs early on in their life, like in an undergrad or I don't know, at some point, but they
Mhm.
never that I've experienced. There's some exceptions. I have found that flute professors at universities have never freelanced and have zero idea any kind of to give any kind of advice
Ah, yeah, that's huge.
or
Right.
music performance
Right.
majors. Now, when you go out
Mhm.
in the world, it's just like, I don't know, you're prepared to play the Mozart concerto for what orchestra? No one, when you get out, like there's nothing there that you were trained to do. Anyway, I think just that attitude of in college where it's just never discussed how you're going to manage a freelance life, which is
Mhm.
very multifaceted. And music is
Yes.
one thing, and how you have to practice efficiently, if at all, and all these other things. So
Um,
that's a lot to think about, just the
yeah.
being organized and getting that day job. So I guess we could summarize, right? To the younger audience, like you've got to get a day job unless you've got generational wealth or
Right.
whatever,
Our spouse is supporting
or
you.
you're married to somebody who's in
Yeah.
finance or like with a regular job. But
I think there's zero shame in that game. I just feel
right,
like that's just one of the things that could happen for somebody
right.
as
Yeah,
much
I
as
guess that's the main point I think we want to say is like there's no shame in it because we definitely grew up with like, oh, that was the worst thing you could do. Like you're not a real musician if you get a job.
yeah, I think people just need to stick to their guns and take care of themselves.
Yeah, take care of
You
yourself.
know, this was fun.
Yeah.
So, for those who are coming back, thank you. If you like what you hear, drop comments, like, share, all the things that one does to spread the word. We'd love to have more audience and yeah, and actually, if there's any topics people wanted to hear more about, that would be great to hear in the comments as well.
Yeah, drop that in the comments and we will
Yeah.
definitely cover anything.
Yay.
So anyway, thanks for joining this video. We'll see you next time.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.